excited to be bringing this topic to you today. As I said, I'm Karen Reynes. I'm the Director of Workplace Programming for NAMI Central Texas, and I'm delighted to be the moderator for today's session on Empowered, Rethinking Our Approach to Managing Mental Health at Home and Work. And I am so excited to have our panelists today. We have with us Courtney Bailey, Deborah Rosales-Elkins, and Lawana Thomas, who make up our panel for today. We had another panelist, I think that we probably had promoted that. He was unable to join us today because of a family circumstances, but we've got plenty to cover today with this dynamic group of panelists that we have. And so I'm excited to start this conversation with the three of you. And I kind of just want to circle back to, I know we were talking about this before we got started, about the fact that we recognize that there's sort of no magic bullet to wellness and recovery, how interesting it is, that how unique it is per person. And I think that there's probably gift in that, right? Especially when you come to know and have insight about what is most helpful to you. And we know that everybody's toolkit looks a little bit different. And we think that that's really important to recognize that. So I'm really excited to kick off this year with this conversation of looking at some complementary and alternative practices that we can consider and alternative approaches to this. And I love the focus around the empowerment piece, because for me, the more that I know about what helps me, the more empowered and confident I can feel in my recovery. And I think for those of you who are listening, who are family members or partners or friends of someone, it also, like, understanding these alternatives and why they're important allows you to be a better support system to that individual. So want to start with that, and then really talk about the fact that what we know is, and why we think it's important to talk about some of these alternative approaches, is that we know that traditional medical and therapeutic methods have improved over the years. We know that. But we also know that often they don't completely eliminate nor lessen the symptoms of a mental health condition. And I know from my own experience of talking to members of NAMI Central Texas and some of our volunteers, and so many of them sharing some of the practices and alternative treatments that they've been exploring, and how helpful it has been to them. I knew that it was really important that we bring this topic to the surface, because I think it's important to recognize these along with some of those other more traditional things that we know are so helpful. Like, I know just about every person I talk to who manages their own mental health well, almost all of them will mention sleep, for instance, and say, oh man, sleep plays such a huge part in my taking good care of myself. And we know diet plays a part in that, and exercise and supplements and all of those things, and art and music and volunteering. But today is an opportunity to sort of do a deeper dive into some other alternative and complementary practices. And I want to be clear, like, we're touching upon 3 areas. We know that there are so many others. So what we're hoping that today will do is both inspire you and empower you to do some additional research for yourself. And I think it's important, as you're doing that research, that you recognize, and I want to elevate this, that I didn't know this before I started doing the prep for today's session, that the National Institute for Health has actually established the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, NCCIH. And I know Erin, who is doing some tech support for us today, is going to drop that link into the website and that information. I wasn't aware of them, but they're actually the main government agency that both conducts and supports research, but also provides information for the public about complementary health products and practices for mental health and other conditions. So I wanted to make you aware of that, so that as you get inspired to explore other alternatives, that you have a place that you can go to get more information, because we think that that's really important in doing that research for yourself and exploring some of these things. All right, that's sort of my build up to the panel, right? So let's get started. I would love to give each of you an opportunity to tell us just a little bit about yourself and why you think it's important for individuals to explore alternative and complementary approaches to their mental health. So Courtney, let's get started with you. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about why you think this is important.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Courtney Bailey with Leadership Austin. There, I'm the Director of Issues and Engagement, where we focus on community issues like healthcare, racism, mental health, criminal justice, and so on. I also work with People's Community Clinic through the Sundara Yoga program, where we focus on trauma-informed yoga for their pain management clients or patients. And why this topic is really important to me is that sometimes we look at health and wellness and even mental health as like a one size fits all. And that can be daunting for people. And I hope in this conversation that you gather that you have to customize your experience and your wellness journey. And you shouldn't compare what you are going through or dealing with what others are doing. So yoga may work for me, but something else may work for you, and that's okay.
I love that. Thank you, Courtney. That understanding that what works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for everyone. And I think that's really important as we're having this conversation. All right, Deborah, I'd love to hear from you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you think this is important.
Sorry, just trying to remember to get my mute button off. Hi, everybody. My name is Deborah. I am a peer support specialist at the wonderful Integral Care, our local mental health authority. And I also spend half of my time working as a peer at Dell Medical School Bipolar Clinic. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today. I will be speaking on Reiki, and I'm very excited to share some of the tools for my toolkit.
Excellent. Thank you, Deborah. And Luana, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you think this topic is so important.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luana Thomas, and I am a certified essential oil coach. And what I do is I love to educate others on all the many ways they can improve their physical, mental, as well as emotional health using natural solutions. And I believe that having these things at your fingertips is like empowering for you on a day-to-day basis for you and your family. And so I experienced so many different things several years ago, health challenges that actually I had ran out with going to all the different doctors and so forth. And I found that mental health and physical health, they are connected. And so I love what you said, Courtney, about what may work for one may not work for the other. But I think that if we empower ourselves to become the CEO, to become the owner, take ownership of our health, that's what's important. Speak for yourself. And we don't know what we don't know, right? So I think it's important to explore alternative approaches when it comes to your wealth and health and wellness being knowledge is power. And so if I hadn't opened my mind to it, because I had never heard of essential oils, and if I hadn't opened my mind to it, I would not be where I am today. And I'm afraid to even think of where I would be because I was on a downward spiral. So I'm very excited to be here to share my the reason why I keep essential oils in my toolkit.
I love it. Thank you, Luana. I jotted that down. The CEO of your health. Like, I love that. I've never heard that concept, but I love that. Like, own it, right? It's yours. So wonderful. Again, delighted to have you all here. Let's get started with Courtney. Courtney, you've been teaching trauma-informed yoga and movement classes recently, you mentioned, at People's Community Clinic for several months now, and you've been doing, I know, that virtually. So tell us more, like, what is trauma-informed yoga and how is this different from yoga taught in a normal studio? And then what's the benefit of practicing remotely in particular? Because I know you've been doing a lot of that in the midst of the pandemic.
Right. Thank you, Karen, for that question. So first I'll start with like, what is trauma? And so trauma is the emotional and physical response to like a terrible event, like an accident, a violent act, or even a natural disaster. And trauma-informed yoga consists of evidence-based techniques derived from the yoga therapy modality or methodology. It involves specific protocols for you to understand, recognize, and respond to physical, psychological, and emotional trauma. It's done in a non-invasive manner without dredging up traumatic memories. It allows for relaxation and it connects you to your breath. It also allows you to have your own unique experience, as Luana mentioned. And so you take ownership over your health journey through that process. And then one of the things I really, really love, it prioritizes the needs of the student, right? And it allows for greater self-awareness, regulation, self-regulation, and it goes beyond the yoga studio. So you can find trauma-informed yoga at your healthcare facility. There are programs in prisons, addiction recovery centers, and in general community spaces. And so it makes it more accessible. And that's why it was perfect when People's Community Clinic reached out to me to join the Integrated Pain Management Program. In this program, I teach specifically chair yoga, and it's virtual to small groups of PCC's community members, right? And what this pandemic has shown us is that we can do a lot of stuff remotely and virtually. And that includes yoga and other health practices, right? And so the benefits of practicing remotely, it's more inviting. So for the person who definitely doesn't feel comfortable going to a yoga studio, especially when you look at the images that are put out there about who can practice yoga and who can't, it can be intimidating. And so now you can do it in the comfort of your own home. It allows you to, again, practice on your own, focus on your own experience and not worry about what other people are doing. And then in chair yoga in particularly, it gives more control because you're not focused on a mat, and mats can be expensive. You're not focused on your outfit, like you are literally focused on yourself and you're looking inward for your practice. And then I have to, when I talk about the positives to that, one of the downsides to being remote, you got to have a computer. You have to have a camera and internet. And so I know at People's Community Clinic, the staff, they've been really helpful and supportive in making sure that the patients don't allow technology or are not tripped up by technology, and technology isn't a barrier. And so, you know, we spend time. It's not about jumping into the session. We may spend time helping with someone's camera or being on the phone with them before we join the session. And we also can customize it. So we have an all Spanish speaking series. We also have, like, you know, series for anxiety. And so that makes it more, it goes back to the needs base where people can really feel like they are being met where they are. So I'll stop right there, Karen.
I love that. And that's exactly what I was going to say, is I kept feeling like I was hearing you say you're meeting people where they are, not where we think they ought to be. I also love what you said about, I've actually like yoga myself, and I've only done it in the midst of the pandemic and done it like watching videos for exactly the reason that you named. Like, I'm still like not sure if I'd go to a yoga studio, because it's that feeling like the images that we have of yoga and who does yoga, and, you know, feeling awkward about our bodies, which I think is really interesting, because what I know also about trauma is that it gets rooted in our body, right? And so our bodies respond to that. And so I think this notion of being in that sort of space, safe space of your own home, allows you to really just focus then in on what you need to focus in. So a couple of questions that came up. So one was, I mean, it sounds like People's Community Clinic is doing this great job of meeting people where they are, but not everyone is a member or connected to People's Community Clinic. So are you aware of there are any other trauma-based yoga classes that might be offered online? Like, are you aware of any YouTube instructor or anything?
So you definitely, so I can't give you a specific instructor that comes to mind like right off the top, but if you Google trauma-informed yoga or even like chair yoga series, different ones will come up. Okay. If you want to Google breath work, there are sometimes you can find handouts or what do you call it? Graphics or infographics online. But then if you also, depending on what community you are a part of, if you go to like your community center, if there's like a website, so like groups, also like the, what is it? YWA, I believe.
YWCA.
YWCA. Truth, Racial Healing Circles. Those groups actually are doing trauma-informed techniques. So there are specific groups in different communities that are doing that. And so if you look up community sites and community center websites, you can find that information. And if you do a follow-up, Karen, I can share some of those links, but right off the top, the individual doesn't come to mind.
That sounds great. So, and certainly as always, any of our folks that are participating today, if you haven't had an experience and you want to drop that into the chat and share, you're welcome to. But we will follow up. Courtney can send us links to anything that she might have. And in the follow-up email that we promised you, we'll add that in as well. I know that I've tried yoga with Adrienne is what I've been doing, but I have not ever searched for any kind of trauma-informed yoga. So I don't know that she does that, but I will say the gift of technology, right? Because there are so many options out there. Okay, so let's move on then. Thank you, Courtney. I'd love to talk to Deborah now about a little bit about one of the reasons we're excited to invite you back here is because you joined us for a previous Mind Matters event and you talked about Reiki then. And I know there was this flood of interest, like we had all these questions coming through. So tell us about Reiki. What is it? How has it helped you?
I'd love to, Karen. So I got involved in Reiki several years ago. I was working for an organization. I had this wonderful boss who was a Reiki master. And let me tell you what Reiki is. So Reiki is very much like going for a massage. You go on, lay on a massage table and someone works on different parts of your body. What's unique about Reiki, it often the practitioner won't even touch you. Now, when I first heard of this, it sounded, well, a bit edgy for me. I thought, how can that work? You go and someone is not touching you and you get a benefit from it. But this boss I had, I was really intrigued. You know, have you ever met those type of people where it's like looking into the face of Buddha? That's what I call it. They are so calm. They are so radiant. This is the energy that my boss would give. And I was so intrigued. And I like to learn from people who I think are living their best life. So she encouraged me to go to a session. And I remember lying on the table, closing my eyes, and I could tell where the practitioner was working on me because I could feel the heat radiating from her hands. And afterwards, I remember thinking, I don't think I've ever been this relaxed in my entire life. I had to rest afterwards before driving. I was just like jello. And from that point on, I was sold. As a woman who lives with a bipolar diagnosis, one of the things that has been challenging for me is learning how to calm my anxiety, to ground myself, if you will, and calm myself down. And this is what Reiki has given me. I can be in situations with other people and be able to use the practices on myself, and nobody around me can tell what I'm doing. It's been such a benefit for me to be able to calm my anxiety and to what I call the monkey mind, everything just going everywhere, and be able to focus. One of the things I've learned is there are many roads to a destination. I love hearing about Courtney, and I look forward to hearing from LaWanda about essential oils. I think that there are many, many ways to get to a destination. And that's why the more information we have, which you've been saying all along, Karen, that's power. That information is power. And so for Reiki, this has been something that I have done to calm myself. I went through some extensive training, which I spent a lot of money doing. And it's kind of interesting because I don't work on other people. I just work on myself and my children. You can go to YouTube and look at a Reiki session to get information. I also have a link that Erin is going to drop in to the chat for me. That is just one of the best ways of explaining the different benefits of Reiki from Healthline. And I encourage people who are interested to check that out. There are many practitioners in Austin. I got my certification when I lived in Minnesota. So I'm not familiar I couldn't give you a specific name, but it is so easy. Living in Austin, we have such a rich holistic health community that there is just so many, avenues that you can check out to look at this yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Somebody just asked, and I don't know that you'll know the answer to this. Is Reiki covered by HSA? And she said, I guess I would have to check and I'm not sure. So a health savings account, it might be, but I think you would have to check that out. I don't know if you've had any experience with that,
Yeah,
Deborah.
being that it is holistic health, I find it very hard to get coverage for paying for some of these services, but it's certainly definitely worth looking into to see if that's a possibility.
So I have a question in regards to, it sounds like you've done some training so that you have this ability, as you said, you don't actually utilize this treatment on anyone else but yourself, and it sounds like your family, but so if people are interested in using Reiki for themselves, like how much training would they have to have? I mean, how much do you think that, how much knowledge do people have to get to that place of saying, oh, I'm going to get benefit from this? So in other words, like I'm probably never going to be trained to teach yoga, right, Courtney? But I know enough, I've done enough of it now that there are times when it's just like, okay, I just need to do a sun salutation. I just need, I know enough to how to do things for myself. So how much does it take of knowing Reiki to get to that place where you can benefit from some level of treating yourself in that way?
That is such a great question. For me, the richness is in the journey. And so just finding something that you're not very good at first and continuing that practice, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And for me, to reach the benefits for myself, once I learned the principles and could start putting the practices, because it encompasses so many things, not only in being able to harness your energy and ground yourself, but also in looking at how you can do other things to enhance it, such as practicing gratitude, things like that. It all seems to build on each other. And so I'm very excited to have people check out the link that I've shared with Erin that she's going to put in the chat, because it just gives such a wonderful overview of the small habits that you can start incorporating in your life to build in order to adopt Reiki in your life.
I love that idea. I mean, just that understanding of it in that way, that it is these layers of things that we can do, small things. Yes. It's interesting. I was listening to this podcast the other day and it was talking about habits. It's from that book, Atomic Habits. And it was just talking about that, this notion that so often, especially at the beginning of the year, we make this list of resolutions of things, like I want to lose weight. And so therefore, and so he proposed that instead of coming up with that list of things that I'm going to do or things that I want to lose weight, that instead, and I love this idea, that this notion of doing small things and that understanding that your actions are a vote for the kind of person you want to be. So thinking back to you, Deborah, saying, I wanted to calm my anxiety. And so it's like, what are the actions that you can take to help you in being able to do that? And so I love that, because I sort of feel like that's sort of what these practices are about, from Reiki to the essential oils and also the yoga. So I love that you kind of brought that in. Also, Erin, do you mind, go ahead and drop that link in one more time. I know you have already, but we've had a number of things come through, so folks might have missed it. If you don't mind dropping that in there again. Oh, and guess what? We have a Reiki master here. And so that person was sharing with us. Training varies, and there's no official Reiki method. There are 3 levels of training, and they use the UC Reiki tradition that they learned. And Reiki, you can work on yourself, or Reiki 2, and you can also work on others, and then a Reiki master, and you can train and attune others. Thank you very much. That was very helpful. I appreciate that. Keith sent that message to us. Okay.
May I say something really quick before you go on?
Sure, Courtney. Yes.
And I know, like, we talking about training. I think it's important to stress that, like, so I am a certified yoga teacher in trauma-informed yoga, but I am forever a student. And this is an ongoing process. Your wellness, your journey is an ongoing process. And so we don't know everything, right? And so it's also about sharing information. So when I work with different groups, I'm learning from them as well. And so, yeah, so you can be, like Luana said, the CEO of your journey as well. So we're all students and teachers.
I love that. What a great thing to add to that, is that understanding that, again, we can all learn from each other, which is what we're doing today. So Luana, I'd love to hear from you now. It's hard for me to believe that it's been almost a year ago that we connected at the African American Family Support Conference. We were talking about how we're all fans of that conference. But that's when you first shared with me your passion about how essential oils had really proven to be such a great addition to your toolkit for your mental wellness. So tell us more about your use of essential oils and how the practice of using them has really helped you.
Okay, yes. First, I want to say that, anxiety, we were talking to someone, I think it was Courtney that mentioned, or maybe you, Karen, we stack things on. We stack, things happen and we just kind of ignore it. And then something else happens and it just keeps stacking and stacking, kind of like with atomic habits, right? You get the small habits going, you get the bigger thing. So I will say that everyone experienced triggers. We all experience triggers, anxiety. It could be from taking a test, new job, interview, event planning. It could be traffic, all of those different things, right? So those all affect everyone. Everyone is going to experience those triggers. So having the control of those to support your body is very resourceful for me. So several years ago, I had experienced unexpected death in my family. And so it was very traumatizing for me. And so it had been like a couple of years and I was just going through all of these different issues. Health challenges. I was the type that's a very outgoing person, love to travel, love to explore different things and do things, enjoy life. And so I no longer had those interests and I just wanted to be to myself. I was going to doctors, professionals, test after test, appointment after appointment, no answers, whatever. And so it caused me to go into a depression, and depression runs in my family. So I started going into it. I went into a depression. So I was always the type that had the preventive attitude with health issues. I always wanted to take preventive measures. Nothing I was doing, nothing I had always done was not helping me anymore. And so my cousin introduced me to the essential oils and I was like, well, why not? I've tried everything else. I'm not getting answers here. I'm not getting answers there. So let's try it. So I tried it. And I tell you what, after just a couple of drops of an essential oil, it changed my world. It literally rocked my world to have that support because, like, as I mentioned earlier, there's a connection between physical and mental health, right? So these issues that I were having physically were actually coming from my mental space, right? So my mental space, my emotions, everything was all over the place. So when I tried the essential oil and got control of the emotions, then all of those physical issues started to resolve. And so now I love the empowerment that I feel so empowered to where now I'm tuned in with myself. Just like Deborah was saying, when you feel some anxiety, when you feel different things that are a little off, you got a little friction there. And to be able to reach for something, I've been able to reach for an essential oil. One oil doesn't work all the time, right? I try different ones, go to different ones until it registers with my body and my mind, and I have that control over my body in my mind, which is a powerful thing. So I love the way with the essential oils, the way they work is it keeps you, when you're elevated with these emotions and it keeps going up, Well, when you have something that you can breathe in, have it right there at your fingertips where you can start breathing it in, and the aromatherapy of it, how it affects the mind, and calm down your mental space. And so to have that kind of control, is empowering for me and my whole entire family. This can be from children, from babies. We all deal with emotions, especially now. So I really, honestly, I've become an advocate because I know how beneficial they have been for me and my family, and for so many other people that I know. So just to have those things at your fingertips when you're having these issues, or triggers or anything. I couldn't be like when I was at work, when I was working on the job, when I first experienced the essential oils. And I would start having some anxiety, heart would just start racing. I would just open up my bottle of lavender oil and put it on my desk. And within a couple of minutes, I'm calmed down, right? So having these tools in my life, in my world, I can't even imagine what life was before. So like I said, if I hadn't had these tools to use, then I don't know where my mental space would be. So that's why they have been so important to me, is I have a go-to. At home, I can go to, whether it's in my restroom drawer or it's in my pantry or it's in my I have somewhere I can go to get the support for my mind and my body.
I love it. The power of that toolkit, right? And knowing what
Yes,
works for you. So I have a couple of questions.
Mhm.
One of them came in through the chat, which I think is a super important question to be asking and clarifying, because this person says, so do you drink the oils or do you put them on your skin?
Yes, well, there are certain ones that you do not want to drink, but I do. I use them aromatically, topically, as well as internal. And that depends on the oil, the quality of the oil. Quality matters. If you're going to use an essential oil and it's synthetic, or it has some fillers in it, fragrances and so forth, you actually could be doing more damage to yourself than good. So you want to make sure that you're using proper certified pure oil. So yes, I do internalize mine. And that, in fact, that was my first experience of internalizing them, where my mind cleared, the foggy thinking, the just feeling sad, life just zapped out of me. Didn't want to do anything, to drinking, putting a couple of drops in my water and drinking them. And within a couple of minutes, I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? I was looking at this bottle like, what is this? So it did. It's like, that cannot be real. But yeah, that was the experience for me.
Great. So we're going to talk in just a little bit more about how, where to find more information about that, because I think that's going to be critically important. And so, yes. And so just as a general question, though, is there a site or someplace where people can go to get good information about essential oils? And then there's a question as well, which is, have essential oils been used to assist those who are on the spectrum? Seems like perhaps they could be beneficial to those who have environmental triggers such as smell. So curious if you're aware of that.
In the essential oil world, we always say there's an oil for that. And literally, there's an oil for that. Yeah, so it's just a matter of being plugged in with the proper resources, with people that that are using them. Do your research on them, and you can find the ones that are pure. Because right now, essential oils have become so popular, they're in the dollar stores. They're everywhere.
Right.
So
right.
you just want to be mindful of what you're putting on your body and in your body is utmost important for it to be the very best that you can find.
And we will circle back to that in just a little bit and discuss that in more detail. I also wanted to let you know, because Luana and I talked about the fact that we connected through the Central Texas African American Family Support. Actually muted myself. Sorry about that. I want to make sure that we mentioned the Central Texas African American Family Support Conference, and I did want to let you know, I dropped into the chat there that the registration for that conference is now open, and there's a link there. So if you're interested in that, it's such a great conference. So we certainly want to encourage all of you to explore that a little bit. So I want to come back to Courtney now. As I mentioned, you've heard my own enthusiasm for yoga. Big fan, and I feel like, especially in the midst of the pandemic, which is when I really picked it up, that it has really been helpful to my mental health, especially in practicing the mindfulness piece. But I think it's interesting that you've in the past also raised a great point that yoga isn't something that is easily accessible to everyone. So what can we do to ensure that yoga and other alternative modalities are more accessible? What can people do if they don't have access to classes or even a mat?
So I would say, like, there's a saying in certain communities, like, you know, the community is becoming like gentrified or changing once you see a yoga studio, organic food stores, or even a dog park. And it signals to those folks in those spaces that this is not for you. And I think that message exists because in general, health and wellness is sometimes marketed as something of a luxury, right? And so, so take yoga, for example. Although it can be traced back to northern India, and it was part of like, it is part of a whole lifestyle, yoga in our Western society has taken on a different meaning. So it's seen, first of all, it's lucrative, it's a business, right? It's a booming business. And so it's seen as like this, something that middle-class white women do, educated middle-class white women can do and have access to. And when you look at the marketing of yoga, you see, you know, slim bodies, expensive yoga pants and expensive mats. And when I was first starting out in my practice, I couldn't afford that. I couldn't afford to go to a studio. And so I just thankfully had people in the community who were willing to like teach me and I could train under without certification, right? So I was teaching like for years without any certification because of that community trust. And so the first thing is like, how do we talk about these modalities? The language that we use, is that language creating more barriers? You know, is it inviting? The images. Are you only showing white women doing yoga, right? Are only, you know, does it look like only white women can use essential oils or people with money? Because sometimes oils can be expensive. I love essential oils, but they can be expensive, right? And so a way that, and even though like people like me and Lawana and Deborah should definitely be paid for our work, there's ways that like organizations and different groups can help too. And so like, for example, NAMI Central Texas could decide to put on a wellness event where they bring on folks like Deborah, Lawana to the space and make sure that they're paid for their services. I'm definitely an advocate for that, especially when it comes to BIPOC or people of color. But then make the event open to people of color and communities that normally wouldn't have access and not charge them, right? And tell people to come as they are, as opposed to making people feel like they have to bring a mat or what have you. Because those can be really expensive as well. And then in terms of like tools and things that we use, like in yoga, you don't need a mat. It helps with injury and it helps with keeping you away from germs, but you really don't have to have a mat to practice yoga. And you don't need to have any type of outfit to practice yoga. And so just changing our mindsets as people who are teaching it, but also as a community, changing how we talk about it would also help with the accessibility issue. And then groups who have the power to meet communities where they are, then do that and listen to communities and ask them what they need. Because truth be told, lots of communities who now don't have access to these modalities were using these modalities for years and years, and they're part of their traditions. And so when did it get removed from that, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I answered your
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for the inspiration and the challenge. I mean, I think for us as an organization as well, for us to be thinking about, oh, how is it that we might also, beyond just an informational session like this, but also, as you pointed out, provide opportunities to connect people and to change the way that we think about these different modalities. So love it. Thank you for bringing a voice to that. Okay, so Deborah, you've given us some great information about Reiki. But how can people learn more? I mean, clearly there's a lot of interest in it based on what you've shared. And how can someone access Reiki for their own wellness? Sort of that same question to something that feels a little bit inaccessible. How can people learn more and access this for their own wellness?
I love what Courtney was saying about how communities have been using these things for years and how we have to remove the barriers. So things aren't just for what seems like an elite practice. When I look back into my heritage as a Mexican-American woman, there are stories of my grandmother laying on the hands with people. This is something that's in our culture of healing, the power of touch. And so what Courtney was talking about really makes me think is, how can we make this more accessible? And it makes me want to share about a practice that I was turned on to when I lived in Minnesota. There was this wonderful place called Pathways, and everyone who worked there was a volunteer. They had holistic health practitioners, Reiki, healing touch, aromatherapy, and practices I frankly had never even heard of. It was all free. The practitioners would donate their time because the place was set up for people who were facing life-threatening illnesses and knew they only had so much time to live. So they donated their time, and people could go there, and they took it on a tier system. The sickest people got seen first. They could have a free Reiki session, a free healing touch session, aromatherapy sessions, and so much more. And then it was a win-win, because the practitioners were meeting all these clients who were then, when they had a benefit from it, were using and paying for the services, but got to try them first. Here's something else. The hospitals in Minnesota, there was one that I'm thinking of, Abbott Hospital. They would offer holistic health along with Western medicine. If you went in for surgery, you could have access to aromatherapy, Reiki, healing touch. And they didn't do this out of the kindness of their heart. What they found is people healed quicker. It was an option. And I don't know how they figured it out, how they got insurance to pay or whatever, but these were free services along. There's just so many beautiful ideas that as we connect as a community, we can look and borrow these ideas. I would love to see some of these practices in Austin.
Wow, that is amazing. I know we've got folks just also clapping in their seats at home about this as well, because I totally agree, like amazing. But I love that it was focused, the point that you made, that it was focused on people were seeing that it worked, that those additional treatments worked, that they were helping people heal faster. And at the end of the day, that's what this is what this is all about, right? Is understanding that there isn't just one answer. There's not just one way, but there are multiple ways for people to get to this place. So thank you for sharing that story. That's powerful and certainly inspiring. Lawana, we've had a number of questions, more questions about the oils. So I want to circle back to you, because again, we're talking about accessibility, and you've mentioned that not all essential oils are the same. And it does sound like it can be challenging. We know that sometimes they can be expensive, and that it can be challenging to find what will work for each individual. So what are some just real basic kind of check boxes that we should be looking for? How can we gain access to both the information and the right oils? What should we be looking for? What should we be careful about? How can you kind of help us kind of at least give us a little sort of primer on how to move forward if we're wanting to learn more?
I love what you were saying, Deborah. Yes, how these techniques have been used forever. It's just they kind of got lost in our way, and so now we're just kind of like bringing them back up, just like essential oils. They've been around forever. But yeah, I just wanted to say, yeah, with the essential oils, you want to make sure what you can look for is if the bottle says not to be internalized or not to be ingested. that will let you know that that's not a pure essential oil, right? Because I mean, we're digesting essential oils daily in the food that we cook. The food that we cook, the different things those are herbs, right? They're just an essential oil format. So yes, you want to make sure that they are pure, that there's no fillers or synthetics or fragrances with those. So some essential oils, they're not all created the same. They're not created equal. So not using them can cause more damage than good. My experience have been with doTERRA essential oils. That was my first experience. I started researching about doTERRA essential oils, learned that they're a science company, and they partner with several hospitals and doctors and universities. And, there's universities that's doing clinical trials and so forth with the essential oils with doTERRA that they're using. John Hopkins, Huntsman Cancer Center, all of the different facilities that are using doTERRA essential oils. I love that they're third-party tested. I love what they stand for as far as making sure they're presenting quality essential oils to their customers. So doTERRA, DOTERRA. And so what they do is they facilitate a best personal experience with doTERRA. And it's really basically, if you know someone that is using doTERRA, they're all about direct selling experience because they want you to be able to get support from whoever introduced you to essential oils, that you would get the support not only from the company, but be plugged into resources like I'm plugged into resources from people all over the world who are using doTERRA that share their experiences with me, remedies, different things. We all, just like we're using this platform to learn together, that's what we do with doTERRA. We just learn together. So it's best it's overwhelming to try to do this on your own because there's so many things. It's an easy thing to do and use because there's just three ways to use an essential oil: topically, internally, or aromatic, right? But it's a matter of listening to your body and knowing what your body actually needs. And then the patience aspects comes in as well, because you want to be patient. We're just wanting such a quick fix on everything, right? But what are those quick fixes causing in our body? What we can see and what we cannot see, what we can feel and what we cannot feel. So you want to just be patient, and just the body is created to heal itself, right? So you want to be plugged in, not saying that it's such a difficult task to learn how to use essential oils, but like I said, being plugged in with, if you know someone that uses doTERRA essential oils, get plugged in with them, with their resources, and we're all just helping each other as a family. That's what we call it. It's a gift. doTERRA stands for a gift of the earth. And that's what we all do, is support each other in our healing journey, because we all need healing.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That was very helpful. So I'm being mindful of the time, and I want to make sure all of that information has been really helpful. And I appreciate each of you and your enthusiasm and passion for all of this as well. I wanted to, before we finish up, just invite each of you to answer one final question, which is that you shared a practice you're passionate about, but I'd love to hear what else each of you have in your toolkit. What are the other things besides the things that you've talked about today? What other practices do you rely on to support your mental health? Courtney, will you want to start? I'd love to hear from you.
Sure. I want to go back to, you asked about resources and I went blank. One tool that I used was Decolonizing Yoga, because it offered inclusive ways to create a yoga practice, right? So that's a really good resource to use.
And is that an online, like people can find it online? Okay. Decolonizing yoga. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. And so sometimes, like, believe it or not, I don't practice yoga all the time. Sometimes I don't want to. One thing that is super constant though is my intentionality around practicing to breathe more consciously. And so that's just something that I do because I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. So my breath often gets caught in my chest. So breath is really important to me. I also use music as a healing tool. And so right now I'm listening to affirming music from a group called Beautiful Chorus, Tony Jones, Londrell, and it's hip hop and R&B, but they focus on removing toxic friendships, healthy love, leadership, money, you know, the unsexy side of self-care. And it speaks to me in a very real way. I also do meditation, which has been really good for me. And that goes along with the breathing. And then I mentioned earlier, like healing circles. So sometimes like having a space of community, when you're doing it by yourself, that is hard. So for me, part of my healing practice is racial healing. And so I like to incorporate that in my self-care. And so truth racial healing circles, and they happen all throughout Austin, greater Austin, actually. So you can find it in Round Rock, Austin, and other areas, South as well. In addition, therapy, right? And so for me, it is a process trying to find a therapist. I had a good therapist, but that therapist had a very strong DEI lens, and then they moved away. So that's really important. That's part of my to-do list now, is to find a new therapist, and because it's a relationship, and it's been really hard because I'm focused on racial healing, and I want my therapist to understand that. I also enjoy cupping, and I have tried like, and I do love essential oils, but like Lawana said, some oils you can have a reaction to. So making my oil sometimes and trying different things, that's been really fun. And Reiki and acupuncture, I've tried that, but in those practices, it's about trust for me. And so if I don't trust the person because they feel really intimate, I may not want like their hands too close or their energy too close to me. And so those are like a few things that I've done, but also like simple stuff where you don't need, I guess, a practitioner. So walking in nature is very healing, you know? So just going out on walks by myself or with a friend has been super helpful practice for me. And then using my friend group as accountability partners to keep me in check when I do fall off.
I love that you have such a robust toolkit, Courtney. You've given us some great things to also consider. So I appreciate that. And especially just that whole notion of, I've heard this underlying kind of weaving of this community and how important that is. And so I feel like that's what you're pointing to when you talk about the circles and just having that accountability with friends. So that's great. Deborah, anything you would add to that list?
Oh my goodness, yes. And I loved what you were saying earlier, Karen, about how it takes many things to keep us in wellness. And I couldn't agree more. For me, I have a toolkit that I rely on. And I'd like to talk about the pieces of inspiration. When I start getting stuck in the darkness, as I call it, I need to inspire. I need to take action. I have books, videos, research of inspiration that I keep handy so that I can remind myself of the things that bring me back to connection. And I'd like to talk about two right now. One, of course, Renee Brown. I've read everything she's written. Very inspiring. Her new book, Atlas of the Heart, I want to talk about it because it has been so impactful. She has broken down through her research 87 emotions that she goes into depth about how they correlate, what are the differences, and why this is important is because when we can accurately name our emotions, we are in charge of them, whether it is to enhance them or diffuse them. And we can accurately explain to others who love and care about us what we're going through, which is another means of connection and feeling understood. She has done such an outstanding job with this book that I'm so glad I bought it in hard copy because it's a book that I'm going to cherish and refer to a lot. And secondly, Call to Courage on Netflix by Renee Brown is one of my go-tos. I'm embarrassed to say I must have seen it 20 times. Whenever I start getting off track, that video brings me back to what I need to be doing to stay in wellness. So thank you for letting me share those.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm also a huge Renee Brown fan and also got Atlas of the Heart for Christmas and have been thoroughly enjoying it. Lawana, we've only got a couple more minutes left, but I wanted to make sure to give you an opportunity as well to share other things that are in your toolkit. Anything else that Courtney or Deborah didn't mention that you'd also like to add?
Courtney mentioned a lot of it. I was like, well, what else is there to say? But I will say that, you know, we as women, we sometimes feel like it's selfish to take self-care. For self-care is a selfish thing to do. It's not. It is not. If we don't put into ourselves, then we won't have enough to put into anyone else. So self-care is very important to me. So the same thing is with I love to just be in tune with myself, and then I let go of toxic relationships. So if because if it's pulling me down, it's not building me up. And I choose to be around positive energy. And so that's what I stay in tune with, how I'm feeling as an individual, and within myself, and be honest with myself. And that's how I can stay in tune with how I feel. So self-care is very important.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It is hard for me to believe that an hour has gone by already. I feel like we could talk for another hour. And I just truly appreciate not only the information you brought, but also the spirit that you brought to this, that I can sense that real commitment again to, as Courtney pointed out, and I love that about being the student, that commitment to continuing to learn and grow in that and to understand we don't have all of the answers. And what a gift that is in understanding that we can learn from each other and have opportunities. We've dropped a bunch of stuff into the chat, but I know that Erin will also include that in the email that goes out with the survey. And then you can find these ladies out in the community doing the amazing work that they do. And we just want to thank you, Courtney, Lawana, and Deborah. Thank you for your time and your energy and your passion around this topic. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Folks, we'll see you back on January 27th to discover and talk about family dynamics around addiction and recovery. And we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.